Berlin, April 1945. The city was a graveyard of shattered stone and smoldering dreams. The Battle of Berlin raged, a relentless storm of fire and steel. Soviet shells tore through the air, reducing grand boulevards to rubble. The German army, battered and broken, clung to the last threads of defiance. Amid the chaos, a single act of desperation flickered in the shadows. A race to save a piece of history from the jaws of destruction. Hans Dirk, a groundskeeper at Charlottenburg Palace, moved through the ruins like a ghost. His hands, calloused from years of tending the palace gardens, now trembled as he worked under the faint glow of a lantern. The Amber Room, that glittering marvel of the 18th century, was being torn apart. Its golden panels encrusted with amber and mirrors were being dismantled by frantic curators, desperate to save it from Soviet looters or Nazi scavengers. But Hans had his own mission, the Chandelier. Crafted in 1799, the Chandelier was a masterpiece of ornate crystal and gilded bronze, a crown jewel of the Amber Room's opulence. Its prisms had once caught the light of royal banquets, casting rainbows across the faces of kings. Now, it hung precariously in a crumbling palace, its fate tied to Hans's shaking hands. The air shook with another explosion, closer this time. Dust rained from the ceiling, and Hans's heart pounded. The Germans were meticulous, their efficiency legendary even in defeat. If they found the Chandelier, they'd strip it for parts or melt it down for the war effort. The Soviets, advancing block by block, would claim it as a trophy. Hans had no time to waste. He worked in silence, his breath shallow. Each crystal prism was wrapped in gauze, then cotton, then brown paper, tucked into nondescript crates marked with meaningless numbers. His fingers bled from the delicate work, but he couldn't stop. The Chandelier wasn't just art. It was a symbol of a world that was slipping away, a world he'd sworn to protect. Outside, the flatbed truck waited, its engine coughing in the cold night air. Hans loaded the crates, his eyes darting to the shadows. A neighbor, Frau Keller, had seen him earlier, her gaze lingering too long. Could she be trusted? The Gestapo had ears everywhere, even now, in the city's final hours. One whisper and Hans's mission would end in a bullet. The truck rumbled out of Berlin, weaving through streets choked with debris and despair. Hans clutched the wheel, his knuckles white. The crates were covered with a tarp, hidden among sacks of grain. He drove toward his family's home in the countryside, a modest house with a sprawling yard. It was there, under the cover of darkness, that he would bury the Chandelier. By midnight, he reached the house. His wife, Greta, waited at the door, her face pale. "You're late," she whispered, glancing at the horizon where Berlin burned red. "They're close." "No time," Hans muttered, grabbing a shovel. The yard was soft from spring rain, and he dug with a fury that belied his age. The crates went into the earth, one by one, beneath an old oak tree. He marked the spot with a single stone, unremarkable to anyone but him. Greta watched, her hands twisting her apron. "If they find it," she began, but Hans silenced her with a look. "They won't," he said, though doubt gnawed at him. The Nazis had stripped the Amber Room with surgical precision in 1941, shipping its panels to God knows where. Hans had outraced them this time, but for how long? The Soviets were closing in, and rumors of their brutality spread like wildfire. Days later, Berlin fell. Hitler was dead. The German army surrendered, and the city was a tomb for 22,000 civilians. Charlottenburg Palace lay in ruins, Its amber room vanished into legend. The chandelier, though, remained hidden, a secret buried in the Dirk family's yard. Years passed. Hans and Greta grew old, their lips sealed. The world moved on, but the chandelier's fate remained a mystery. Frau Keller, long dead, had never spoken. The Gestapo never came. The Soviets never dug. In 1965, Hans's grandson, Paul, played in the yard, kicking at the stone by the oak. It shifted, revealing a corner of weathered wood. Paul, curious, began to dig. Hans, now frail, watched from the porch, his heart seizing. "Leave it, boy," he rasped, but Paul was already pulling a crate free. The gauze was brittle, the cotton rotted, but the crystal gleamed, untouched by time. Paul gasped, holding a prism to the sun. It caught the light, casting rainbows across the grass. Hans staggered forward, tears in his eyes. The war was over, but the past was never truly buried. The amber room's chandelier had survived, but for how long could its light remain hidden?